Hello, my name is Sydney and it has been a hot minute, a hot 6 or 7 months since the last time I posted a video. We all know what's been happening in the world the last couple of months. I'm not going to belabor about anything about that right now, but I just wanted to say that I don't even know what to say right now about writing or about my channel or about anything. Right now, I could just tell you all the glorious writing projects that I've worked on in the last 6 or 7 months, but I'd be lying to you. What would be a more accurate statement is all the writing I have wanted to do and have thought about doing but have not necessarily done. I could tell you about all the times I sat down in front of my computer and was not super productive, had a very short attention span or a very strong lack of interest. You know, I want to work on my story and maybe I would do that for a few minutes but then would get bored or get distracted and end up not writing. I feel like even though not a whole lot of writing has happened, I feel like enough writing things have happened that I just don't even know where to start. So if you've been on this channel a while, you know that I've got 2 main writing projects, but I've also had a 3rd main writing project kind of jump on the bandwagon. I think I said I would call it like my hotel story or something. So there's that one. That one I've kind of been beating around the bush with. Like I look at it, I think of things. I even wrote maybe another 1,000 or so words in the last month or so for it, but ultimately haven't really been able to conceptualize where I want to go next. I guess one thing that I want to talk about is that, you know, just when you think you've figured out your writing process, you start a new project maybe, and that writing process that you thought you had concrete established suddenly doesn't work for your new project. And that's what has been that's what I've realized recently has happened with the hotel story, is that I thought that, for example, one of the main things I did when writing Storm Cloud and Pitchfork is that I could sit down at chapter 1 and write straight through to the end without skipping over any scenes or without jumping around. Like I had a pretty clear idea of what I wanted to happen next. But what I've been finding with Hotel Story is that I have this urge, I kind of have this urge, like maybe I want to jump around, but also like because I don't know what's going to happen in the very next scene. And there are scenes, you know, maybe several chapters away that I'm looking forward to writing, but I don't know what I've already written. Like I don't know how that's going to connect to what I want to write in the future. And I feel like if I do just jump ahead and write that thing, now I have to come back and figure out how I got from point A to point Q. You know, like I have to figure out all the steps that came in between. And what if I do go back and write all these scenes in between, but then when I get to that scene that I jumped ahead for, like now that scene no longer makes sense, like it doesn't track, or I have to change drastic things. Like maybe I figured out my character's personalities and they developed a completely different way than I expected. Basically what I'm saying is I may have to discovery write the hotel story a lot more than I'm used to discovery writing. I'm normally the kind of writer who sits down with a generally I would say a somewhat detailed but also pretty loose and forgiving outline. Like I like to have a plan, but I also like to change that plan as I go along, and I also like to leave some gaps open just to kind of see what happens. But this time I would be pantsing a lot more than I'm used to in the last few years. So that's going to be an interesting thing. Another thing that I want to talk about is that one of the reasons I haven't been super productive the last several months of my writing life is that I've gotten into this rut where every time I have the urge to work on a story, say Storm Cloud or Pitchfork, like if you've been on my channel a while, like I said, you know I have those 2 main projects, and that I've relatively recently been feeling like I'm going in circles working on these projects and that I need to jump out and do something different, like work on a new project. And so every time I have the urge to work on, say, Storm Cloud or Pitchfork, I sort of condemn myself, like, oh no, you should be working on Hotel Story, or you should not be going back to these stories you've already like beat to death, even though you have new ideas, or, you know, if I have new ideas for these stories. Like I'm just condemning myself for wanting to revisit these old projects where I've already made a significant amount of progress on. I've written complete drafts after complete drafts. I've reconceptualized these stories, you know, reconceptualize characters and plots and everything, and just like I want to go back and write some of these stories, but I feel bad. Like I make myself feel bad for wanting to go back for writing those stories, if that makes sense. Like I feel like on one hand I feel like I need to move on, like maybe just put the stories on the back burner and just move on, but on the other hand it's like I'm not ready to move on. I want to work with these stories. I see potential in these stories. I love these stories. how could I just like bury it, you know what I mean? And so first of all, as a writer, I don't think you should ever shame yourself, or anyone of course, but especially don't shame yourself for wanting to write what you want to write. I'm struggling with that. It's one of those things I know up here, but like in terms of acting upon it, and in terms of giving myself the freedom to work on the projects I want to work on, I do need to just cut myself some slack, you know, like I need to get back to that point where I can just have fun with writing. And I always thought that working on the hotel story, my newest, you know, most serious project, it felt like sort of growing up, you know, like when you're growing up, it's like saying that you're not allowed to go back and watch like your favorite kids TV shows, when that's not at all true. Like of course you can always go back and watch your favorite kids TV shows. I mean, prime example, Last Airbender is on Netflix, as I'm sure many of you know, and we've been rewatching it and it's been great. Like I love it, you know. That's one of the shows I absolutely loved when I was 10. And being 25 now, there's nothing wrong with going back and watching any kids shows for that matter. But this sort of feels like that, where I've got this, oh, now I like this other, you know, program which maybe is more geared towards adults, but now I'm telling myself that I'm not, just because I watched that, now I can't watch the other show. Like that doesn't even make sense to me, but that's the way I've been treating myself with my writing projects. So what I would ideally, in an ideal writing world, utopia, like on one hand I'd like to pick a project and stick with it for, you know, a few weeks and see what happens, but on the other hand I kind of want to go with the flow and just write whatever project speaks to me on a particular day. The only problem with doing that is it makes it hard to like get into the project. You know, you spend a lot of, like, if you sit down for a writing session, usually it takes me a good 45 minutes of just like faffing around. I learned that British term recently and I think it's so funny. I don't really know what it means. I don't even know if it's like appropriate or whatever, but I think it sounds funny. I spend a lot of time faffing around in my notes before I like start doing any productive work, and that's on like on the best of writing days. But like even on these days where I'm just kind of like, ooh, like not really focused or tied down, I'm sort of drifting, you know, over my projects, but I haven't really landed on anything. By the time I get settled into a project, then the next day I don't want to work on that project anymore. I want to work on something else, you know. But all of that is to say that right now, today, on this very day, at this very moment, I have gone back to Stormcloud. Actually, this happened like yesterday. I woke up and I was just kind of, before I even got out of bed, I was just sort of thinking about Stormcloud and thinking, okay, brainstorm some plot ideas, you know, because I kind of feel like I wanted to move the plot that I originally had for Stormcloud Book 1, maybe make that a Book 2 plot, because it feels very big stakes and I want to take a step back and just sort of, I want to focus more, like on a smaller scope of the world, and then for Book 2 can zoom out a little bit and see how the whole world is affected, kind of, if that makes sense. So I was thinking to move the Book 1 plot to Book 2, and so I was brainstorming like, okay, what are some plots that I can do for Book 1 that will more directly connect with my main characters, like her goals and her plot development, because the other plot, it does connect very strongly to her individual plot, but it also could connect more directly, I think. But if I move it to a Book 2 plot, then that's something I can deal with later. But and that's not why I'm moving the plot to Book 2 so I can deal with it later. I'm moving it because I think it might have a better place there. Whereas Book 1, now I can zoom in on my character, zoom in on her immediate world and what she's dealing with, and more that way it can more directly, the overarching plot can more directly tie to her personal goals, if that all made sense. So I had an idea. I took out my phone and I started like making notes, taking notes, and it was great. I had like a whole page of notes in OneNote, and it even ties back to an idea I was working with in a previous draft. So I can probably, so this would be for draft 9. This new idea will be draft 9 of Stormcloud. And so for draft 8, what I had as chapter 1 will likely still be able to stay. It actually makes more sense, that chapter 1 with this new plot than with the previous plot. And so, but and I'll probably steal some chapters from draft 8, like that version of the story, here and there, but I think it'll be more of the world establishing chapters and scenes and character scenes, but I think most of the book will end up just being pushed to book 2. It's exciting because it gives me sort of, well, it gives me momentum. It gives me motivation to actually work on this project because I'm actually now very interested in this idea, and I feel like I have a much more concrete idea of what I want to do with this draft, which is something I have not had for the last 6 or 7 or 8. I don't even know. When was the last time I was productive in writing? Like maybe August of last year? It's been almost an entire year since I've had like a pretty concrete project to work on. It's not entirely true. I had a good project to work on at the end of October, but then I met my boyfriend and nothing. My mind was too occupied by other things to be able to focus on my story. But that wasn't even like the reason I stopped writing. Even before I met him, like it's been very, I don't know, like I had no structure in my writing life. So now I've been trying to rebuild it the last few months, and I now finally feel like I'm in a place where I can do that. So, new plot idea, a lot of the same characters, a new aspect of the world. I have, like I told you about my Earth Pyre. I can link a video down below where I explain what Stormcloud and Project Pitchfork, I explain what those are about. So I told you about my Earth Pyre. Now I've got a couple of roles in the story that I've added, like job titles and like characters who are in these jobs, the roles that they play, and they play a pretty big role in a way that's going to affect my main character's interactions with other characters. And so that's kind of like one of the biggest things I have to figure out, is how to work that in a way that makes sense. It will involve a lot of killing my darlings. It will involve a lot of revisualizing who these characters are. It's like you have a character who's in a role, and my main character interacts with that character in a way like they're very close, you know. They share a lot of scenes together. This character is like a pretty big character, but now that I have somebody else who's in this new job role, it sort of is a barrier between my main character and that other character. It's like she wouldn't be in contact with that other character as much as she had been in previous drafts, and now I'm trying to figure out a way to be true to the realism of my world, but also honor the relationships with these characters. And that's where the killing my darling bit comes in, is that I may have to just get rid of those scenes. That character just may not play as big of a role as they used to, or it may even mean that that character could be in this new job role, and that way she still interacts with this character. It's just now they're playing a different role. But it's like, would that still make sense? I don't know. Lots of things that I'm thinking about, but it's good things. I feel good. In terms of next steps, I'm continuing to brainstorm and come up with ideas. I think pretty soon I'll be moving on to the index card phase, where I write down scenes on an index card. I may also do a master scene list, but that would be more of a sort of that would be more of an outline, actually. I shouldn't call it a scene list, because a scene list is something I usually write after I've written the novel, because that's just telling me what all the scenes are in the novel. But this will be more of a loose outline, where I'm just kind of playing with scene ideas and where they could come. But I feel like it'd be easier to do that hands-on with index cards, so I have to cut up some more index cards and do the scene list. But I also think I have to do a little bit more world development to figure out exactly how this new plot idea that I have, how that would fit into this world. The only thing I'm worried about is this plot idea has the potential to be a very dark idea, and I don't want this to be a dark. This is not a dark story to me. Like, it deals with some dark themes, but it does so in a sort of lighter, colorful way, I think. And so I have to figure out how to add this dark aspect without making the whole story have a dark vibe, because that's not my intention with this story. All the darkness goes towards Pitchfork. That's a dark story, but this, not so much. Anyway, I think that's all I have to say for today. I will definitely check back in some other time this week, whether it's tomorrow or a few days from now. I'm not really sure, whenever I have something to talk about. Or whenever I've made progress on this story, or even the hotel story, whatever I feel like working on, we'll see. But I'm excited. I feel renewed. I'm starting to get that anxious excitement back that I used to have with writing sessions. I will say that is one thing I miss one of the things I miss more than anything is being able to go to a cafe or a coffee shop or whatever and just sit down and write for 4 or 5 hours. Like, that's been really hard because I cannot really write at home. I have not really been able to be super creative at home, not in any sort of consistent way. It's always been like I go to a coffee shop and I'm immediately productive, whereas if I'm at home I get too distracted by like the TV and everything else that's going on at home, all the other things I could be doing. So yeah, maybe I'll go outside. I might sit outside and work on the story, but yeah, we'll see. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys are doing well. I hope that you're healthy and you're safe. And if you're working on your creative projects, I hope that they're going well as well. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give this video a like, hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Toodaloo. When was the last time I said that? I don't know.